everyone. This is Heather with the Leadership with Heart podcast. And today I am thrilled to have Kim Townsend on the show. Very often folks are either referred to me by someone I know or someone who listens to the show, or I find them usually on LinkedIn. But in this case, someone reached out and said, I really think there'd be a really good guest for you. And they gave me a summary of Kim's background. And I thought, oh, I have got to have her on the show. And it was this whole focus on serving marginalized groups in the work that she does and as a leader of an organization and just all of the ways she has her hands knee deep in that and trying to really serve that population. So welcome, Kim.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Heather. I'm just so excited and honored to be here with you today.
So where are you right now anyway in your leadership journey?
Well, like many leaders who are leaders of healthcare organizations, I think the saying, may you live in exciting times, is really our reality. So right now, in my current position, it's a very exciting and dynamic place to be. I'm the president and CEO of Loretto, which is a long-term care health system that serves nearly 10,000 people a year from the ages of 18 to 108 years old. And 70% of the people that we serve are Medicaid eligible. So we are the safety net provider for our region for these types of services. And then in addition to that, very exciting is my workforce. So of the 2,000 people that Loretto employs, 65% of those people are women who are residing in those most highly impoverished zip codes in the United States. So our employees like most people, face many challenges. And I think what's been so exciting for me is to work with my team to come up with really creative solutions to help our employees as they face challenges in their lives, as well as to make such an incredibly positive impact on our region with the people we serve. So it's just really a great place to be. And just a little bit about Loretto. It's a 100-year-old, nearly 100-year-old organization that was founded in 1926 on three principles, which were partnerships, innovation, and a desire to solve a big social problem. And back in those days, it was the Sisters of St. Francis in the Syracuse diocese who created the first home for the aged in North America. And the social problem in 1926 was if you were aging in the community and you didn't have family to care for you, you wound up at the debtor's prison, the county poor farm. And so the sisters and the diocese got together and took in 100 individuals of any faith or no faith at all. And, staying true to our roots, that's how we operate today. We really embrace partnerships and innovation. And the big social problem that we're trying to solve today is poverty. And so we have many ways that we work to really provide a path of prosperity for so many people in our community.
You have to have a really big heart to kind of lead in that space. I have a really close friend of mine who works for a homeless organization. It's a nonprofit. And to just be sticking that out day in and day out is not easy because of the stories you see and how I'm sure there can be some compassion fatigue that's happening with your team members who are also then dealing with their own issues as it relates to, again, they're already part of that marginalized group of folks that are struggling themselves. So how do you deal with that as a CEO of the organization? How do you work, poverty being the big one, you have to focus on the 2,000 employees you have first. How do you work that through with your team members?
Yeah, so I think the one thing that we're seeing coming out of COVID is just, and really coming out of COVID and now going back into COVID is just exhaustion in a level of trauma, right? Because I think if you talk to healthcare workers across the country, they're experiencing trauma. So at Loretto, and one of the things that I really promote is looking at Maslow's hierarchy, right? And how we can meet people's basic needs. So some of the programs that we have to meet our employees' needs so that they can better serve the people they're caring for is a diaper bank program. So every month we give out 16,000 diapers or pull-ups to our employees who are parents, and 50% of the people in the program are grandparents raising their grandchildren. We also have a We Care Fund that helps people when they have emergencies come up in their life. We have a car buying program. We offer free urgent care at all of our major sites to our employees. And we also, very proud to say, something that I'm passionate about is really helping people move forward in their lives. So we do all of our training internally. We have the first federally registered LPN Apprenticeship Program in the United States. We now are on our third cohort of people, and this effectively takes people from making $15 an hour to making $30 or more an hour in 10 months. So we really feel that, I personally feel that it's so important at Loretto that we take this multi-generational approach, right? To help people where they are today, but to give them hope for the future, which is really changing their lives and the lives of their families going forward by putting them in a great economic position.
Yeah, that makes me think of the idea of, leading a horse to water, showing them how to drink, or just basically showing them how versus just giving them water, or teaching people how to fish, or
Teaching
giving them
people
fish.
how to fish
All of it, right?
versus
It's
giving
all of
them
it.
the fish. Yes.
Exactly. And I think about this so much because I feel like, you bringing it in-house, number one, makes it easier access, because often with marginalized groups is the access issue. So you have it right there at work and put them through it and fund that process. And then of course, from that, there's long-term growth and gain for their families. And now you've just been like the rock in the pond where it goes out further than just that person. Now their family is impacted, and now it's generational, because now they can to have other people coming in the organization. So I can see this being very long term. And when I think about my book, The Art of Caring Leadership, or just the focus of the work I do around whole person leadership, this is a big one. And that also the idea of looking for the greatness in people, but also giving them that seed of greatness. Sometimes it's I remember Daniel McCollum talks about this idea of breathing a mission into someone, sometimes you have to give it to them, your belief is first stronger. And then because you've breathed it into them and they feel so confident about it, then they turn into that thing or better than that thing. And so the work you do sounds like you get there.
Well, and like you, I really believe that leadership exists at every level. So leadership is not a title. Leadership is leading with heart, as your book talks about. And I think if you can really paint a vision for people of their future, and you can support them through that process, it can be life-changing. I know it was for me. At one point in my life, I was a single parent, 3 young children. I had a high school degree. I was a non-traditional student when I went back to school. And it was really through the support and the mentorship and the sponsorship of people in my life, people breathing vision into me, that I really saw that I could make a positive difference and be a leader. So I think that that's just so incredibly important, what you've described, Heather, is that those of us that are in leadership continue to give that hand down and pull everyone up that we can.
So I'm wondering, I know you just talked about other people breathing a mission into you and where you were at with being a single mom with 3 children. I am curious to know if that drive to lead goes further back. Did you have this desire to lead or do bigger things much early on? And what was that drive?
Yeah, I think I always had a desire to lead, right? I mean, and back when in the 60s, when I was growing up, that was called being bossy. And so I think that that's an outdated phrase now, right? If it back in the 60s, if you were a boy and you were showing those leadership traits, you were a leader. But if you were a female and you were showing those leadership traits, you were bossy. But I think something that's really important to me is to make a positive impact, and that's something that I've been able to do. That's why this role at Loretto has been such a perfect fit for me, because it's an organization by its DNA, by its roots, that was created and exists to make a positive difference in our community, an anchor institution that not only serves the community by providing care for those who are most vulnerable when they need it, but also as an anchor employer in the area, employing probably the largest number of individuals who are coming from those highly impoverished zip codes, right? Giving them a start and helping them flourish in their personal and professional lives.
Yeah, it's beautiful. Okay, so now everybody hears how, emotionally intelligent you are, how others focused you are. But even being in that really graced place, I think in life, we all fall down, right? Sometimes, particularly in that leadership capacity, in the titled leadership capacity, let's say. So now I'd love for you to share a story, as specific as you can be, when maybe you were not the best version of you. You weren't the best leader that you hoped to be. What did that look like specifically? And then what did you do to kind of come out of it? When I say come out of it, I don't mean rise up through the ashes and become perfection. It's not what I mean at all. I mean, just coming out of that valley. How did you come out to get to the top?
Yeah. So, healthcare, the healthcare environment is always fast paced, but I think at the beginning of COVID, the data was very thin and emotions ran very high, right? And so on February 29th, 2020, I remember it because it was a leap year, our organization was first confronted with the coronavirus pandemic. And one of the things that we did immediately was we closed our doors to all visitors because data was thin. We didn't know how it was transmitted. We didn't know how long it was going to last, and we didn't know the impact. And so we closed our doors to all visitors and vendors. And I can tell you this was a highly unpopular decision. There were family members that were so upset. There were staff members who were upset. It was just so challenging, but that was a decision that we made, and we made it before we were required to do it. We made it long before anyone else in the community. We took a lot of heat for it. In the end, I believe that doing that saved lives, but at the time we probably could have communicated. I probably could have communicated my rationale more clearly to our families, to our staff, to our partners in doing that. And, I think the times in my life where I've fallen down in leadership has always circled around not clearly delineating between facts and perceptions. And I think if I had communicated the facts to people rather than our perceptions, which appeared to be fear-based, I think if we had communicated the facts, we don't know how it's transmitted. We don't know how transmissible it is. We don't know the impact on vulnerable. I think if I had communicated those facts, it would have been better received. And while the outcome was probably a good one, that would be something that I would have done differently in retrospect.
Yeah. And I think this is what we have to do, right? We have to be constantly evaluating ourselves. It's a hard, the whole titled leadership role, versus just the role that all of us play in just leading ourselves and others around us every day, right? The title, the authority-based leadership role really it's not for the faint of heart.
No.
particularly when you're, whether you're over a team of, 2,000 doesn't give you obviously a deeper breath to take because the impact is bigger and the ripple is bigger. But just thinking about how much we have to evaluate ourselves and say, how do we show up today? Doing kind of an examine at the end of the day and saying, what decisions did I make? Did I communicate well? Did I leave people feeling full of strength and hope, or did I deplete them in my lack of communication? Like, these are all the things we have to continue to do. And it's just a tough road to take, but somebody's got to do it. And it can be brilliant. I think, again, like you said, your impact was there. So you did have the safety there. You had that in mind. And hopefully they saw through that. We can't always be perfect. But then at the same time, thinking about, okay, if this comes up again, which we're right in the middle of again, how am I going to do this differently next time? And I appreciate that reflectiveness there.
Yeah, and I'm a huge believer in just doing what you've described, almost game filming important parts of your day, just like they do in sports, right? They review the game once it's over, then you can see the things that went well and the things that didn't go well. And that's something that I think I agree with you is such an important leadership practice.
I love that so much. Okay, so now but here's the fun part. We get to turn the tables a little bit and you get to ask me a question. Anything that you had either after reading the book, it doesn't really matter. I'm not going to put a context to it. What question do you have for me that you'd like to ask?
Well, as I told you earlier, I love your book. And I've actually tabbed and highlighted parts of your book. And something that I'm really exploring now, and I think your book just perfectly discusses, is the role of love in business, and not just non-for-profit organizations, but every business. And I'm just curious, how did you come to your premise about leading with heart and to bring caring and really a sense of love into the workplace?
I think that answer is twofold. One is I naturally lead that way, and I don't mean to say that this is not kind of a self-proclaim, oh, I'm the best. This is not what I mean, but I kind of lead with compassion. I lead others focused. I'm thinking of like my team members. I sense their needs. It's kind of just a natural thing. So that's one of the things. I would say the other thing is I encountered some great leaders, only like a handful. But I've also encountered some people, I call them idiots. And I've encountered them too. And what I mean by idiots is this is not the imperfection game. This is the not awareness game, and not desire to fill the gaps we're leaving for people game is what I mean by idiots. So because I had the exposure to both of those, and one in particular, I was working at an organization, there was a merger of companies, and there was just a lot of issues with the communication snafus. Mergers are not so great. But I was in the middle of it, and I was feeling really dragged down. I could feel all the mistrust. I could just, it was awful. People were coming to me, but I was feeling like I wasn't being like the best leader because I was being dragged down myself, and decided I would take on this employee engagement issue, and did that, even though I wasn't leading HR or anything. I was in customer experience, but I did that. But I realized, like, in this moment of leading this engagement council and trying to bring people together and seeing people really excited about trying to be the change they're seeking and not being so miserable at work, that somebody needed to be like the voice for the people who didn't have a voice. And somebody needed to be the one who's like this bridge between the senior leaders and those who are like driving the business forward every day on a day-to-day basis. And so at that moment, I just said, it's me. And people, they came to me, like they looked to me as that leader who was always had their back. And I thought, okay, how can I teach this kind of leadership? How can I teach it, even knowing that none of us are perfect? And that's kind of where this idea of leadership with heart came from. So the podcast I established in 2017, and then this book that just came out, and just all the work in between, to be honest. There's been a tears, sweat, journey up and down like everything else. Nothing's perfect, but I have owned this. I've owned it for quite a while. It's so funny. I get these like Facebook reminders. We get these like Facebook reminders like 2-3 years later. And all of a sudden I see this quote that comes up to me for me. And it was like 4 or 5 years ago. And it's like a quote I would say today. And I go, well, either this means I'm consistent or I'm unoriginal.
That's funny.
Something here. So yeah, but that's how I came up with this idea of leadership with heart.
And it's really similar to the concept that I talk about in my 2 books, which is pragmatic altruism, right? Which is doing good is good for business. And likewise, in any situation, You can generally find a solution that works for everyone if you bring every person to the table and every voice is heard, every person is seen, and every opinion is valued. And that's what pragmatic altruism is for me, very similar to leading with heart for you. And it's just exciting to be on this journey, kind of a parallel journey together, really talking about those same issues that we've encountered.
Absolutely. We need lots and lots and lots of voices of saying this any way we need to get the point across to impact as many people as we can across the globe, right? So there's definitely no shortage of spaces for there's like a whole group of us that use very similar language. We kind of tiptoe around all. It is all the same thing, right? This concept of love and care. This concept of, I know healthcare organizations really like my message, because that's what you all do. It's the focus on care of others. But I want to expand outside of that. And I want to take away this idea of that the only people that can show care are those who are senior leaders or those who are organizations. I want to show how we all can be more expansive in that view. And then we can say in our shoes, each of us in our shoes, as we stand as humans, how can we show more care towards our each other's, as humans. So yeah, it's
absolutely
exciting.
A rising drumbeat, right?
Yes.
A rising drumbeat.
Love it. Love it so much. Okay, so for those who are listening right now, what might be a couple pearls of wisdom you'd leave them with? Something that would get them through the week, something that would get them through the year, something to help them think differently about their role as a leader, a caring leader, somebody who's, aspiring to be better in this area.
Yeah, so I would tell people that leadership is not a title. It's who you are and how you show up. And even when it's very difficult to show up, because of some of the challenges you're experiencing, maybe in your personal life, or it could be what we're experiencing in our workforce right now with a global pandemic, is to really reach out and support others and seek that support for yourself if you need it. I can tell you that caring people are all around. We are not the only two on the planet. And every person needs a caring person in their life, and people like us are standing there ready to support and help you on your leadership journey and on your life journey. And so it's always important to care for others and to look for those opportunities to raise others up so that all boats do rise.
I love that. That's beautiful. Thank you so much. It gave me chills. All my boats rise. I love it, love it, love it. So for those who are listening, if you found a lot of value in my conversation with Kim, please do share this far and wide, because this is where we get the right now we're rising up. Our boats are rising in Belgium. They're rising in the management side of the podcast industry. And so the more that we do these kind of episodes and we share, not only the great times, but the times maybe weren't so great, it helps other people learn. And it's through our learning and our growth that we get better. So I appreciate you. And then also, if you find great value just in listening to this week after week, don't forget to do the 5-star review on iTunes or Apple Podcasts, or wherever you might listen. It helps other leaders find this great stuff. Kim, this has been great. I really appreciate you.
Thank you. And I appreciate you, Heather. Thank you so much for the opportunity to speak with you and share with your audience today. It's a very exciting time to be in leadership. And I think that there's for every challenge, there are more reasons to be positive for the future.
Thank you so much. Thanks everybody for listening to the Leadership at Heart podcast. Be well.